name is Ken Kramer, and I'm interviewing at the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Paul Wooten on November 27th, 2006 at the Wyoming Branch Library. Our camera operator today is Diane Wright. And I want to tell you what a pleasure and privilege it is for me to be able to be with you during this interview. I heard you refer to yourself as PJ. Is that what people call you?
Paul J.
Paul J.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I have a son named Paul K, and his name is Kevin.
Okay.
But I'm Paul, and he's Kevin.
I wonder if you could tell me just a little bit about what you were doing prior to your military service, whether you were employed or just out of school or what?
Yes, I was a crane operator at the Cincinnati Milling Machine. By that way, I worked in a machine shop that handled all kind of cast iron fittings. Some of the machines fittings might have been 10 or 15 feet long. I was the man that hooked them up and put them onto the planer of the machine that was next there to do the work for. I did that for a while.
Okay, and since you're African American, and since we're talking about quite a few years ago, the issue of segregation is going to come up, I'm sure. But at the milling machine, was there segregation there?
That was a problem there because when I went there, I had graduated from high school and I took mechanical drawing. All of that I knew about inches and stuff like that. As I was working as a crane follower, still I was a toolman attendant too. And then I knew my work well, but they started bringing in people from across the river that had never been in a machine shop and bringing them in as a machinist. And I didn't care for that because I was a tool attendant at first, and I knew what jigs to bring and all like that. So I became kind of disgusted, and I went down to the front office and I said, Johnny Mac, how about breaking me in on to being a machinist? You're bringing these white fellas from across the river, and they've never been in a machine shop, and they couldn't read a blueprint. And I had all that, and I knew that too. And he said, well, Paul, if I bring you in all probability, all the rest of them would walk out. And I said, oh, that's because I'm black. And he said, well, ever so. So then I took an attitude, I took the test for the post office, and I passed, and I left. But on the day that I was going to leave, I went to the front office and I said, Johnny Mac, this will be my last day. I'm leaving. He said, well, you don't give us any time. I said, you didn't give me any time when I asked you to break me in as a machinist.
Okay.
And I said, well, too bad, good luck. And they gave me my pay, and I never had to go back before. But I was greatly relieved when I was hired at the post office because they didn't have all that.
I see.
But I was quite distressed because I could have been broken in as a machinist and made twice as much money rather than the rest of them because they didn't know anything about a machine shop.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were working at the post office before you went into the military?
No, didn't work in the post office until I got out of it.
Oh, till you got out. Okay.
That was prior to that.
Okay. Then, how did you get into the military? Were you drafted? Or
I was drafted, yeah.
Okay.
It's the funniest thing, I was working at the milling machine, and all my friends was started getting these letters come to draft Ward 33. 33 is right down the street where Sturkey's is. And the time I come home, I said, Mom, did I get in the mail for now? No, baby. And the first time I told her, I didn't ask for it, she gave me my greetings. So that's where I was drafted. So I went down and passed the test, and I went to Fort Bragg, to Camp Breckenridge and all like that. That's the way I got drafted.
Okay,
I didn't volunteer.
Okay, now I'd like to hear more about basic training and the steps that you took.
Oh yeah, that was pretty nice. The thing about it is, all that was kind of new. I learned to march and stuff like that, but I knew my left from right, but time you go into service, you just dumb, you don't know. But the first month was very heady. very hectic because you were a street man. But after you learn the basic training, you know you're all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I started liking it then after I learned how to march and shoot. Although I had learned to shoot too, I had an M1 903 gun. I learned to qualify for that too. But the basic training took about 90 days.
Mm-hmm. Was there segregation there too?
Yes, I was in an all-black unit
Okay.
at Camp Lee, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, the officer was, one of the officers was white and the rest of them were black.
Mm-hmm.
But the training and the schooling, all that was black, completely black.
Okay. And then where did you go from there?
Camp Lee, I think I went to Hampton, Virginia, and I was going overseas. I stayed on the boat 21 days, then going to season.
I forgot to ask you, do you know the date that you went into the military?
That's all on my thing right there.
Okay. Okay. So then you went on a boat, you said, to?
CBI theater
Mm-hmm.
in North Africa.
CBI.
I went from different, yeah, China, Burma, India.
Okay.
So I got a cap with the CBI theater on it.
Oh. And what was your unit?
3561st Quartermaster Corps. Time I went there, that was a truck terminal. We had 48 10-ton tractor trailers. So I had to go to school to learn to drive a truck. I learned to drive that. But they needed somebody to come to clerk. So they sent me to school for clerk school, and I learned to type and all like that. And then I was appointed to come to clerk. By that way, I typed out the payroll and all like that. Instead of me driving a truck, I didn't have that probability. But I was assigned a Jeep to drive around to come to command and stuff like that. That's the same guy that I really know.
And what was the unit charged with doing? What was the purpose of it?
We had a series of truck drivers, and we would go at one point and pick up a loaded trailer and back into it and take it so many miles and drop it and come back, and then another truck would take it from there. We had 3 crews doing that. They'd go from one depot to another and bring all the supplies, food and clothing and stuff like that, from one depot to another, and would drop it down, and another one would come.
So it was basically providing
supplies.
Supplies.
The quartermaster, that's supplies.
Mm-hmm.
That's medicine and everything.
Supplies to whom?
To different units that was stationed all along the CBI theater. And there were engineers, paratroopers, and all like that, but they were scattered all over the unit. So our job was to take the supplies from one unit to another.
Mm-hmm.
I've had 48 10-ton tractors, and all the drivers had that.
48?
Yeah, 48.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were telling me, I think, earlier about the trip over on the boat, that
Yeah.
A number of people were seasick?
Yeah.
The ship, rather.
Yeah, the Liberty ship would go one way and rock and everything like that. The larger ship would go head back, but this one would go this side.
Mm-hmm.
It would look like that and bothered some of the men, and they stayed down in the bunks all the time instead of going up and get some fresh air. But I didn't do that. I was bold enough to go upstairs and get some fresh air and see the water and stuff like that. But it didn't bother me. I was one that didn't get sick. But a lot of the rest of them did. I was very fortunate like that.
Okay. So, how long did you stay then where you were in Africa there?
Oh, I think I wrote it down. The main thing is I started writing a diary from the time I got in, but I had it for 2 or 3 years. And when I came home from the service, I stayed in Lincoln Heights with my mother. And the mother got sick and she sold the house. And a lot of the stuff that I meant to keep, I stored it downstairs, and I didn't get a chance to to go back up to get it, and she sold her house. And by that way, I lost a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
You were telling me about something where there were a lot of Japanese buried somewhere.
Oh, that was in Burma. Burma was part of CBI Theater, and we were stationed there, and the weather was so humid and hot, it would start raining, say about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It rained real hard and pour down and soak the ground, and as soon as it stopped raining, the sun would come out. But the sun was so strong, it would warm up the ground, and the smell of dead Japanese or something would smell, and it made some of the guys sick. Because the Japanese had been through there, and some bodies were sticking out of the ground or laying around trees and stuff like that. The body was still there during the time we were there. But it just was so, the smell was so sickening.
Wow.
And hot on top of that. It would stop raining, then the sun come out, and then dried up, but it would still be stinking.
Well, they were buried, but not very deep. Is that what you said?
Some of them were buried, and some of them was just laying there, rotting.
Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty gruesome. I
Yes, it
imagine.
was.
And some of the guys got sick.
The other one got sick. You take me, I was very sorry I didn't get sick. The one thing is, I started smoking over there because the post office, the PX would give us chocolates and cigarettes and stuff we'd buy from the PX. And I started smoking a little while. I didn't know too much about smoking, but I tried it because it was new.
Yeah.
I was a young man, and I started smoking. I liked it all right. But soon after that, I started coughing a lot. And I went to the doctor's office, and he said, "Do you smoke?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, try not smoking." And I stopped smoking, and I never had any problem after that. So evidently, the smell didn't bother me. It was that cigarette was bothering me. So I stopped, and I never smoked anymore.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. Since I was a young man, I tried all that stuff over there.
Mm-hmm.
I was young.
And again, that was a segregated unit.
Yes, it was still segregated.
Was there resentment among your fellow about the
We didn't like it, but we couldn't say anything about it because it was so universal. It was everywhere you went. Oh, and another thing I noticed when I was drafted and I went down to Cincinnati Terminal, was going to be inducted at Camp Breckenridge. I got on a car in Cincinnati and rode to Louisville. And after I got to Louisville, I was taken out of the car that I got in and put in a segregated car in Louisville. And I'm going to the service. Now, I remember that now.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the style there. I didn't pay too much. I didn't care for it, but I couldn't do anything about it. And going to the Army then.
Wow, yeah.
Right back in Cincinnati, but taken out of the car that I rode in and then put in the segregated car.
Mm. And how was the morale then in your unit?
Oh, it was pretty nice. The guys were very friendly. We had a day room and played records, played cards and stuff like it. Leave and stuff like that. We'd go downtown, things like that.
Tell me about going on leave, a little more detail about what you would do and how to pass the time when you weren't.
Well, another thing with me, since I was come to clerk, when I could make a pass for me, I could go to Calcutta and Indian and Bombay. My main purpose was for me to go down to Bombay and buy a batch of booze and bring it back and sell it. That don't seem but that's the way we got whiskey. Is I'd go, and the funniest thing about it, when I went to Bombay and Calcutta to get booze, the booze and everything was in beer bottles that the Army gave us. Somehow they got the bottles and sold it full of booze for me.
Well,
I don't know how they got it, but that's where I got it.
you must have been very popular among your...
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
They were glad to see you come back.
yeah, I was. Yeah.
And this, you piled it in your Jeep that you were assigned?
See, another thing is we were attached to the Air Force. Almost everywhere we were, we had an Air Force place.
Mm-hmm.
So I could just write a pass, get on a C-47 and fly and come back.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Yeah. The planes over there were C-47, C-49s. It's the funniest thing. They didn't have any seats in it, and they didn't have any doors. So you went in, you almost had to stand in. And so I'd stand right in front of the doorway and look down there because there wasn't any seats.
Or doors?
There were C-47s and C-49s, combat planes. Yeah.
Did your unit see any enemy action? Were you attacked at all?
No, because we were driving trucks most of the time. The black engineers, now they were farther down in Burma, in China.
Mm-hmm.
Same as I say, we were the supply unit. We were in the background more so.
Right, okay.
Bringing the supplies from the States and everywhere else up to the front. And then we'd drop them down and somebody else would take them farther where the fighting was. It's fortunate we never did encounter in the fire, nothing like that. But we were in this, the part that had been fighting. They'd already left the part that when we got there.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much where you were stationed?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
Your time. So then, was your time up, or was the war ended, or?
Well, yeah, by that time it did.
That's,
All the dates on another thing, I forget what it was. But sometime in 45, I think that's when I came back.
okay. So back on the ships to come back?
Yeah. Coming back, it wasn't near as bad as going back because we was on a transport, a bigger plane, a bigger ship. We had more space than we did going over. We still were down in the hole, but it was not a limited ship like the one we went over. We came back in a bigger transport.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was discharged at Indiantown Gap. That's where I came back, and I was discharged there.
Where was that?
In Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah. I spent so long, I kind of remember.
Yeah.
All this stuff is on my discharge. The first time I talk about it in a long time.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you told, are you married? And have,
Oh yes, I got married, and me and my wife been married. Would have been married February 7th. Would have been married 51 years.
wow. That's super. You have children?
Yeah, I got 3 kids. I got Sharon Bishop, she's a Delta Airlines stewardess, and I got Kevin is a direct TV installer, and he's married, and he got a set of twins, and they graduates Wyoming High, and I got a youngest daughter, Kimberly, and she's a nurse at Good Sam.
Mm-hmm.
So out of that, I got 5 grandkids.
Have you told your story to your kids
Oh, yes,
and
yeah.
grandkids?
Yeah. And by the way, the one that made the copies, she graduated from Northern Kentucky, and she works downtown at some place that made the copies. And she's the one who made all the copies. And some time ago, I showed her part of the diary that I made. So she copied some of the things and made a long essay, and she took it to school, and she got a good grade on it, because it was some of the things that I had showed her from the diary that I had. But the diary I showed her, I don't know what happened to it because it was in my mother's house. It's so long time ago.
Right. Well, I know that
Almost every place where I went was in my diary, and things I did. It was real nice.
that's a real loss.
Oh my! I had a uniform and everything up there, but she passed away, and I was married and working, so we didn't get a chance to close up everything like I wanted to.
Sure. But it's good that you were able to, that you chose to tell your story to your kids and so forth.
Oh yeah.
A lot of World War II vets didn't do that.
No.
Didn't talk about it much.
But I do. I talk to her all the time. And the funniest thing is, it's a friend of mine that lived in Bedford, Ohio. I met him on the train, and he came down to see me 2 years ago. His name is Oscar Cooper, and we were workers on the train together. I met him that way. He was in the service too. But he came down to see me sometime, and he started talking about some of the guys that we knew, and every guy that he spoke of had passed.
Wow.
And so I said, well, Oscar, how old are you? He said, I'm 78. And he said, PJ, how old are you? I said, I'm 83 then. He said, what, you that old? So I said, well, I started in the post office earlier than a lot of them because the rest of them didn't work. But I'm just telling you, all the friends that we knew, they were all dead 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm still living. Yeah.
So after you got out of the service, then you were working for the post office?
Yeah, I did that.
And tell me again about...
See, I went back to the same job that I had prior. Because prior to that, you see, I lived in Lincoln Heights, and Wright-Patterson was flourishing in Evendale. And I think my wife's father worked and his sister worked there, but I tried to get a job over there, and I went to get an interview, and when they found out I was drafted, they wouldn't hire me. So that's the reason I didn't get a job over there, because I was draft age. I didn't care for that, but that's what they wanted to do. So rather than a job at Wright-Patterson, I got a job at the Cincinnati machine, and that's where all this other stuff.
And tell me again about what you were doing for the post office. You talk about sorting mail and
Oh, yes. We had a mail train with 3 cars together, mail cars pushing together. It took 27 clerks to man that. Each one of us has a different thing to do. My job was to work West Virginia and Massachusetts, and I was a register clerk, registered mail. But before I got that job, I had to take a test to get in the post office. The test was 4 hours long, and you had to make a certain grade. If you didn't make a certain grade, you didn't get hired. It so happened that I got hired, and I had a passing grade.
Okay, and I noticed that you have an accommodation here for 40 years.
Yeah, 40
service, which included the 3 years that, for the military.
The 40 years include the 3 years of service. I get credit for that. I'm glad of that too.
I'll bet.
Yeah, you take now I have Blue Cross Blue Shield. I have the GI of the government kind. My wife was sick 14 years. She had 2 or 3 strokes and stuff like that, and she was stationed over in Harmony Court. The first 4 or 5 years she was able to get around, but after that she fell and broke her hip, and then she had to be there. But the thing about my insurance, all those years I didn't have to pay anything. By the way, in the last few years I've gotten statements from Blue Cross Blue Shield, the statement that how much they spend for it. I got a stack of stuff like that. I don't want to throw it away. But it's so amazing. I haven't paid very little money for that. And the last time, the time she fell and broke her hip, she had to go to the hospital and stayed in the hospital for a while. And then they took her out and put her in the Drake but she still couldn't get around too much. And sometime after that, I got a statement from Blue Cross. They had spent over $50-some thousand.
Wow.
But she was in Drake. But the part she was in, they were closing, and they suggested that we take her out and put in a nursing home because she couldn't afford to come home with me because she was on medication. She had to have a doctor all the time. So we decided to put her in Harmony Court, and that's where she stayed the rest of the time. But I was just saying, the first statement that I got, it was over $50-some thousand, but I didn't have to pay. Now that's been some time ago. Now there's no telling how much they paid in the last few years, but altogether she was sick 14 or 15 years, and it didn't cost me anything. Right. I'm thankful for that.
Right. Now, of course, the military is no longer segregated.
No.
But you've gotten some correspondence since your discharge.
Oh yeah, from time to time.
Dealing with that particular issue, that not exactly apologizing, but recognizing that
things have opened up more so, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
now that letter that I showed you, now that's
that'll be included.
Yeah. Okay. All truth.
Right.
But I still can't squawk. Is by me going in the service and getting a type of insurance, I can't squawk anything because everybody else go in the hospital, they got to pay a whole lot, right. But I don't have to pay it.
That's a great attitude. And I notice I have here that you are on the honor roll of the National World War II Museum.
Yeah. My name is on the wall down there.
That's great.
I paid $25 to do it, but I didn't mind that.
And then where is the museum?
Atlanta, that's what it is.
New Orleans?
New Orleans, yeah.
Louisiana.
Yeah. I forget what it is.
So when I go down there, I'll look for your name.
Yeah, okay.
Is there anything else that, regarding your military service, that you'd like to have included in this?
Well,
that we haven't talked about?
One only thing is, company commander that was over me overseas, we're still friends. He lives in some parts of California. I got his letter there.
Uh-huh.
And he came to see me a couple of years ago because there was a CBI reunion in Louisville. And he sent me a letter and said, I'm coming to see you, PJ. And he came over and spent the whole afternoon, came down to my house, and we took pictures of myself and him, and he brought a friend with him too, and all three of my kids were there, so took a picture of him. And then we went to Frisch's and ate, and then he left. But he was married, and he lost his wife not long ago, but he had 3 sons, and they all turned out to be doctors. But I'm just saying that we're still friends, and he lives in California. The same guy that was over me over there, we're still friends here.
Wonderful.
Louis B. McCammon is his name. And he lost his wife last year, and I lost my wife this year.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but you take my wife, she was a clerk typist that crossed at AFCO up in Everdale. And she did that for a long while. And they closed that, and then she was the executive secretary for the United Negro College Fund. And she had an office down on Ray Street in the same building where the Playboy Club was. She had an office too. Mm-hmm. And she was delegated to go all these places for the United Negro College Fund. And since my daughter was a flight attendant, it didn't cost anything. I got a plastic pass, and she did too. And so we could fly anywhere we wanted to. So we went to Atlanta, New York a couple of times on a business trip. So I went with Betty. Yeah, because I could fly too.
Wow, okay.
And during the time she was working, my daughter took us to to London and Paris and 2 or 3 places like that. We stayed 5 or 6 days, had a good time. Nice vacation. Then during that time, my daughter was working in Miami with some job down there. And Ben and I, the time it got cold, we'd go down there and fly, stay over the weekend and come back. But it didn't cost us anything because we had our pass. That's before my wife got too sick. But I'm just showing you, we've had a good married life and a nice life altogether because the kids were very influential.
I see.
It makes a difference.
And
So I can still fly now, see, because she's still working.
yeah, and I want to say too that we all have a good life thanks to you and others that, like you, that made such a great contribution.
I appreciate
to. I appreciate it very much, and it was a privilege to talk with you today.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Great.
I enjoyed it too.
Yes, very much.
I feel pretty good myself.
Thank you.